Thank you everyone for attending our July 2026 Housing Commission meeting. We are waiting for in-person quorum. So we're going to start with a info item first until we get quorum, and then we can move to our action items and our public comment. So apologies for the delays, and thank you for everyone's patience as we change up the agenda. So first off, Nicole and your team, if we can start with housing trends.
Great, thanks. This is definitely good timing for housing grants and info session so that the community as well as the commission is aware of what's heading our way for the housing grant program given the adopted FY27 budget. First, I'd like to introduce, if I can, some faces that are appearing maybe for the first time before this commission. I'd like to introduce Maurice Cruz Jasper, who is our housing grant program manager. Or say hello.
Hello, nice to meet everybody.
And I'd like to also introduce our senior specialist, Casey Songster, who's been with the Housing Grant Program for well over a number of years, very seasoned senior professional with the Housing Grant Program who has seen it all. And so she'll be assisting us quite intensely with the pending wait list that we have before the program. I'll let Casey introduce herself.
Good evening. I'm pleased to be here. Nice to meet everyone.
And then newly added to our team is Ashlyn Stevenson. She is our new housing grant navigator, and one of the new positions that was added at the top of the year to help us facilitate wait list as well as serving as a community liaison for residents and connection to our housing grant programs, namely the housing grant benefit. So Ashlyn, if you could say hello.
You're on mute.
Good evening, everyone. So happy to be here this evening, and I look forward to, continuing to service the community with the housing grant program.
All right. Go ahead, Kellen. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just saying thank you.
Am I driving, Maurice?
Casey has the PowerPoint presentation.
Is it showing?
Yes, good evening. If you all will allow me to share my screen, I'm going to go ahead and put up the housing grant presentation.
I think you have to go back one, right? Do you have to go back a few? You're on mute.
I can share if you'd like me to, Casey.
She's on mute.
Sorry, you all. That was the beginning. You can start. I'll go back.
No, that wasn't the beginning.
I got it, guys.
All right, there we go.
Can everybody see?
Yes.
All right, Maurice, why don't you kick us off?
All right. Well, again, thank you very much, everyone, and good evening. As Nicole said, I serve as a housing grant program manager here in Arlington, and I definitely appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about our program this evening. Our agenda, I'm going to go to the next slide, will be as followed. We'll go over some FY27 board guidance, housing grant program growth and current service levels, introduction of the housing grant wait lists, other pending administrative regulation changes, and some communication and outreach plans. All right, I did want to start just reviewing who's eligible for a housing grant. So in order to qualify for a housing grant, you must meet one of the following criteria: working family with minor children under the age of 18, age 65 or older, totally and permanently disabled, or county-supported behavioral health client, part of our youth pilot, which is transition age or youth aging out of foster care. Participants in the program contribute about 40% of their income towards the rent. Income and assets levels do apply, and there are options for participants to lease apartments from private landlords. The FY 2027 board guidance. So to support the long-term sustainability of the housing grant program, the county board adopted a spending cap. Implementation has been delayed until the waitlist technology system is completed, but that is no later than October. And that is to allow time for smooth transition or smooth implementation of the system. Any question? All right. Our FY 2027 budget overview, and as you can see, the graph shows a significant growth of our housing grant program over time. For FY 2027, the program's base budget is approximately $17.7 million. An additional $1.3 million was to fund households again with a cap, which is, as stated, to begin in October. Our projected budget for FY 2027, the projected households we're projected to close out with over 1,700 households for FY 2027. Here you'll see a snapshot of our current participant demographic and how households are distributed across the program. So as discussed in the previous slide, the housing grant program serves households in the established categories of assistance. So we have, again, the working families, the totally and permanently disabled, seniors, and the youth pilot. So as we transition to the waitlist, the eligibility criteria will remain unchanged, ensuring that continued access across the board for all of these populations will remain the same.
Can I interrupt with a clarifying question?
Sure.
So I know one of the considerations that the county board had was whether or not to eliminate the foster youth pilot program. So is it correct that they did not eliminate that pilot program?
That is currently pending for consideration to be removed, yes. It hasn't been eliminated yet, no.
Okay, so for the FY 27 budget, it was not eliminated.
Not as of yet.
Ended.
So it's
It's
pending, it's pending for us to close admissions into the program in terms of the youth pilot program. So right now, until we have our updated administrative regs that are posted for the housing grant program, we are still taking active referrals, applications for youth that are eligible for the pilot. Our regs are somewhere near close to being signed. Once that's announced, it's likely that we'll end admissions into the youth pilot right around the same time the wait list is going to be implemented, which should be sometime in the fall of October of 2026.
So it will be eliminated. It just has not been eliminated yet.
Correct. Until we have the signed approved admin regs through our county manager, we're going to continue to accept youth into the pilot program until there's an official end date that's codified in policy.
Thank you.
No problem. I'm going to take the rest of the slides from here. I'm going to dive into more around our waitlist protocol and what we have right now drafted and pending for that county manager signature. Right now in our policy, we do have language for register or waitlist opportunity for the housing grant program. A wait list is not unique to the housing grant program. Housing grants back in 2003 actually implemented a wait list when it became necessary to limit admissions into the housing grant program so that we could remain within the budget allocation. As Maurice just went through sort of the progression of the increase of housing grants year over year, we are projected to spend upwards of 19 million for the housing grant program, and that is going to suffice as our budgetary cap. So while we have this language already in our already in our administrative regs, we are technically going to implement a wait list and work to fulfill households up to the available housing subsidies that we have available, up to the cap, that 19 million cap that was set by the board. So whenever there is available budget authority to issue grants, anyone that's been available on our wait list, we may have some language coming soon about priority or preference groups, subpopulations. We'll have more information coming soon, hopefully around that. But essentially, we may be working upon turnover wherever there's an available a budgetary allowance or subsidy that we can issue up to our $19 million cap. So what this sort of looks like in terms of an illustration, we'll announce, similar to how our federal housing choice voucher program operates its program through a wait list that is closed. We'll have an open and close date for the community to register for the housing grant wait list opportunity. We will be using our system of record named Yardi. Applicants from anywhere will have the opportunity to openly apply. As I mentioned, we may later announce priority populations where applicants can self-select into the preference standing, which would give them sort of priority standing on the wait list. Once there's an open and close date that's announced, Yardi will produce a final wait list for us to work through. Again, we'll be managing sort of our budgetary authority with how many households we can onboard throughout the given year. So it may just work that we're, obviously issuing subsidies based upon turnover or just natural attrition through the program, or those that graduate from the program and where there become slots available. But as Maurice also highlighted in terms of just where we anticipate our projected households to be served will actually take a dip. Obviously, as there's a static wait list, as there's a static budgetary cap, as rents increase, the number of households we're going to be able to serve through the program will naturally experience a decline month over month. So what will happen is really step one is once we have this produced wait list, we are targeting to hold no more than 500 households on this wait list at any given time, and I'll get more into the details of that in the next slide. But we'll have a wait list of no more than 500 households. What we'll do is we'll continue to work down this list. As subsidy grants become available, we'll be offering the opportunity and screening those households for eligibility. And as Maurice highlighted before, even with the waitlist opportunity, the requirements for the program still would remain. So as we're screening households that come off of the wait list, they still must meet an eligibility category, which will be a working family with minor children. You'll either be a senior that's age 65 or older, or you're totally permanently disabled in order to qualify. And of course, you meet income and asset levels that are requirements for the program. All right, not to freak you guys out, but this is the best show that we have to illustrate sort of how this workflow of our wait list will work. You all will get copies of this slide if you want to dive in and look at these beautiful boxes that we put together. But starting from left to right, I'll go ahead and just sort of highlight exactly how this flow for the housing grant program will work when there's a wait list that we've implemented. So we are targeting again to open a wait list for in the fall. That's actually the guidance that the board has set forth. We have learned from experience in running a number of waitlist opportunities for the Housing Choice Voucher Program that covering a waitlist opportunity for at least 2 weekends is best practice. So what we anticipate is to hold a waitlist open enrollment opportunity for a total of 14 calendar days. We'll have staff as well as plenty of volunteers on hand in the community to support those that are interested in applying to that waitlist. I mentioned that we'll have no more than 500 households that will actually retain, even though we're likely to see, an upwards of tens of thousands of, applications from all over. Keep in mind, we do not have the residency requirement anymore for our local housing programs and our shelters. So anybody can apply for this opportunity. But we will be implementing sort of a lottery as well, so that we're only truly maintaining 500 households to a waiting list, so that we are working through those households in the months and or years to come. And the reason for that is, with the longer the wait list, the longer the program is managing sort of that wait list in year span. We've learned from Housing Choice Voucher that has a total of 5,000 applicants on their wait list. We would be working from that wait list for a period of, anywhere from 7 to 10 years, if not more. So households just get old, stale on that wait list. They're no longer at their communication points when they first apply. So keeping it to 500 keeps it a little fresh for us to continue to reach out to households that might need this opportunity in a more realistic, manageable time as well. We'll use an online system for the purposes of pre-application. We are going to make, similar to how we've done other open waitlist enrollment periods, any reasonable or hardship accommodations that are needed. We'll be on hand to support those that just, if technology is not their thing, we'll find another way to make sure that they subscribe to the waitlist opportunity. As I mentioned, if there are preferences, which we may announce at a later date, through that application process, applicants will be able to self-select whether they identify with the preference that we set. Once the waitlist opportunity or open enrollment opportunity closes, we'll have a lottery system, which will be automatically generated through our system of record Yardi, who will randomly select those 500 households that we're looking to retain and work through. So those that make it through the lottery for us to work through our final wait list will receive notifications from us that they've been selected to the wait list, and it could be called at any time for an eligibility briefing. Those that are not selected through the wait list will be notified either through the system or through my team that they've not been selected to the housing grant waitlist, and then we will make sure that there are either some referrals or other connections to resources that they may be eligible for, whether that be through DHS or other programs that we have available to assist with. I think that any questions there?
Nicole, sorry, this is just, it's very sad for me to see this.
I know.
I remain very disappointed in the county board for adding a cap to the housing grant program. I think does staff have any estimate for how many people are going to become or remain homeless or have to leave Arlington because of the decision that the board made?
Yeah, I don't have a prediction for that based on housing grants. I mean, as you can see, the growth just even over the last few years, I mean, we've grown, in upwards of 19%. So capping the program, sure, yeah, there's going to be households that, would otherwise have been available for or eligible for the program, won't have this opportunity. So there will be a ripple effect that we'll see not only just in terms of, as I said, the natural attrition that will happen because of budgetary cap, but this is also a key resource for a lot of households in our community, particularly for our continuum of care service providers that, have a number of our shelter residents primed and tapped for this subsidy, either, after their state and federal subsidies for temporary housing support has ended. This has been sort of a key resource for eligible populations.
Yeah, and the 14-day, opening for the waiting list. I mean, there's so many people who are not going to, be able to apply during that. I understand why you were doing it, and this is not to cast aspersions on staff, who I think are trying to make the best of a bad situation. But it's incredibly disappointing. Brian and then Anika.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate all you're doing with this. Kind of going off of Kellen's points, can you go into a little bit more detail as to the process for people who are rejected from this? Because as we know, this is going to cut off access for a number of residents. And you mentioned towards the end of your remarks that if someone is found to be ineligible, that they are referred to other resources. What does that process look like? And are you aware of any bridge resources that are available in the meantime as people are trying to navigate being connected to those other resources once they are found ineligible for this program?
Yes, great question. So what we have done in our federal housing choice voucher program, when we opened our wait list in 2023, we had over 19,000 applications that we fielded, worldwide. And when I mean worldwide, even outside the continental US, we had applicants that were seeking a voucher through Arlington County. And then we only retained 5,000 to that waiting list. And so what we've done is not only we spoke to residents, but we also spoke to residents that might be outside of the Arlington community in terms of referring them for other housing supports or resources that they may be eligible for. And so sometimes that is linking them to other wait lists that might be opened within not only the Commonwealth, but also that other public housing authorities, offer up that they can apply online. One of the benefits I will say with having this Yardi tool is that it runs the monopoly for public housing authorities. So many who will register to apply for the housing grant waitlist will also possibly see other PHAs that have waitlist opportunities that are also available that they can subscribe to. And so we encourage anyone, wherever there's a waitlist that's open for, the federal voucher program, to apply. So we'll make sure that we'll have links to, used to be Go Section 8, I think it's called affordablehousing.com, will be provided in the communications. Some of the other approved resources, newly approved resource that the board did adopt, is we do have some flexible targeted prevention funds or rapid resolution funds that the board did approve for our division, Economic Independence Division, to offer, where we have a little bit more flexibility in ways that we can help households that, need some assistance, whether it might be that, the units that are available here in Arlington are just, unreachable for some households. We will have the ability to tap into those flexible assistance to either help move or connect households to jurisdictions that where rent or where units would be more affordable. Obviously, we have eviction prevention resources as well to help families, but we do have a bit more flexibility than we have in years of the past of ways of connecting and plugging holes for crisis where they come about. So we're really happy and excited that we have that to complement this year. And we still have permanent supportive housing program for Arlington County as well. So we still receive state funding for slots. So for those that are disabled and connected to services, that is still an ongoing resource that, if they're connected to behavioral health, they can be referred to other housing support programs. Let's see, in terms of our homeless service providers, if, households do become homeless or at risk of homelessness, there's a number of other federal and knock on wood on the federal, because we're trying to apply for these new COC funds, but there are additional federal and state funds that, provide rapid rehousing or targeted prevention and PSH funding that we can catch households that are at risk of homelessness or facing homelessness that may enter our continuum of care system. So we'll make all of that available, and we'll communicate that to those that may not make the wait list, but nonetheless, we'll try to point to those avenues as best as possible.
Thank you so much.
Problem.
Are the individuals who are currently in the homeless shelters, are they prioritized on this list, or you don't, or you haven't, came up with like a plan, or is that, how does that work out? I just want to know the people who are currently in the homeless shelter. And do you have an estimate of how many people are currently in there?
So we'll be closing out our FY26 activity probably by end of August, but from just giving you FY25 numbers in terms of how many are touched in our homeless system, it's about 1,300 that are, spread across from shelter to outreach to, any one of our homeless services programs, rapid rehousing, PSH. So, roughly we're serving in upwards of 1,300 within homeless services at any given year. In terms of the priority preference, in the past, the housing grant program, when they administered a wait list previously, did have homeless services programs as a preference priority or priority population. As I mentioned, we are still waiting for signed administrative regulations. And so I don't want to misspeak and throw anything out there that may not come to fruition, but there's a possibility that preference populations will be announced. And I'm hoping I can come back to you guys and give you that update and that answer sooner than rather than later.
And Nicole, who are the regs waiting for approval with? Is that the or the board?
Yeah, going through review, we've done additional sort of 2x2s, obviously, with the county board to make sure that they're on board with the recommended policy changes and it's aligned with their guidance. And so county attorney has the policy for review. We're just crossing the T's and dotting the I's. There's some other updates that are being baked into that policy as well, based on just general fair housing laws, regulations that we want to also make sure that, while we're intending to announce a waitlist opportunity, there's just some other compliance areas that we need to tie up as well once the new admin regs are posted. So coming soon, I'm hoping this month we'll have them released for you all.
Joe?
Yeah, I'm a little confused. What is the total universe that you serve in a year? And are there renewals of these things? Are they 1 year or are they?
So specifically for housing grants?
Yeah.
Okay, so right now, total universe, we're projected to, and we'll confirm this hopefully in the next few weeks. FY26, which just ended on 6/30, 1743 total households served within the program.
Of that amount, how many were elderly?
I'll go back to the slide here. So as of May 2026, our elderly population, we about roughly 44% of our participants are 65 years and older. So that's roughly 757. So that's the largest share of our eligible, categorically eligible population is obviously seniors age 65 and older, then followed by our total and permanently disabled population.
Thank you.
And Nicole, about how many, and it's fine if you don't know this number off the top of your head, or like what percentage of folks who use the housing grant program are using it for a year or more, or like less than a year?
I have that. Oh, I have that. I want to say it was a third that are in the program 2 years and less. Let me not misspeak. I have that. I can pull it and I can put it in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Zach?
I don't want to force you to multitask, but I do have a question.
No, don't tempt me, because I when I know where the answer is, and I'll go digging for it, but I will get it to you, I promise.
You mentioned of the universe of 15,000 applicants who applied, some were even international? Were those like folks who have been being processed for refugee status in the U.S. or applying for a visa via the State Department, or what? Who are those people?
And that's for a housing choice voucher when we had the wait list for that, not for housing grant.
Oh, I'm sorry,
But
but question still stands. Yeah, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we accept applications from, anybody, wherever they may come in. So as long as they, have their information and they're able to hit submit. So there's no really vetting or screening at the time of this sort of pre-application open enrollment. The vetting actually comes down if you're qualified for the program or eligible for the program, when your name reaches the top of the list, and then we invite you in for an eligibility briefing. So in those instances, if it just so happened to be someone that, has a different immigration status or what have you, that would be part of the discussion that we would have at the eligibility briefing to determine if they're actually, eligible for the program, if they meet the income requirements for the program, et cetera, et cetera. So in the instance of the voucher program, obviously having legal presence is a requirement for the federal program. So we would have verified that through birth certificate information, social security information, and then running information through Homeland Security is how the federal system would handle it.
Got it. Thank you.
And Nicole, sorry, this one is slightly less on topic, but related. Do you know what the current wait time is, if there is a wait time for residents who are seeking like emergency shelter? Like how many months between when they apply and when a shelter bed becomes available, if there is a wait?
I don't have that information, but I can certainly take it back to our homeless services team, our community assistance bureau that actually manages the shelter placement, that can give you that sort of turnaround time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to move on to some of the other changes that we're expecting to come to fruition within the housing grant program administrative regs. While we're shifting and we've been talking about the opportunity for those that are not connected to the housing grant program and giving them an opportunity to subscribe or apply to the wait list. One of the things we are intentional about, and this is why I'm glad our senior specialist, Casey Songster, is on today, because we also need to pay great attention to our existing participants that are currently in the program. One of the benefits of having an open program with housing grants for all of these years is that, sometimes we're dealing with, very extremely low income households, right, that are at that 30% AMI marker in Arlington County. And sometimes, life happens, circumstances happen. They may fall on hardship. They may, temporarily lose a job, which then may impact their eligibility for the program, because all participants must have some minimum income, right, to remain eligible. So when we're talking about a wait list opportunity and a closed program, what that means is for those that have historically been on the housing grant program and have lost or stumbled in terms of their eligibility, and may have had their household, their grant terminated or closed, there's always been, well, you can reapply, right? You can reapply, and then we would review their application, and sometimes they would get back on the program. Well, we're not going to have that luxury with dealing with a budgetary cap. So one of the things we were intentional about is in the proposed policy that, again, I hope is going to be available this month, is we want to build in sort of a hardship reprieve. This is a little bit TMI information on the screen, but just to give you just sort of the highlight context is that we're going to build in sort of a natural, a little bit of a cushion for those that do experience, life hardships or those circumstances where, we'll give in an automatic 60 days for anyone that might lose their eligibility, whether that's income or, they fall out of an eligibility category that I've mentioned, 60 days to regain their eligibility status. We'll provide another additional 30 days extension upon request. Sometimes they're in the last stage of an interview process, to regain that minimum income requirement needed to sustain the program. And we'll be working with those households that, currently have those grants that are ongoing, but just might need a little bit more time if they, hit a misstep or two. So that will be built in to the new regs. All right, some other changes heading our way. I'm going to talk about things that we are removing, and I'll jump to the youth aging out of foster care, the transition age youth. Again, this was a pilot that was adopted in FY25. So July 1st of 2024. This was a pilot that was to admit 12 youth each year for an up to 36-month period. We have to date, as through the prior slide, we've only generated in these last little over 2 years, 8 total have been able to, successfully fall into or are eligible for the pilot. A number of the referrals that we have seen since the implementation of this pilot were from youth that actually meet a standard categorical requirement. So they were either working families or they were disabled. And so we would naturally move them into the longer term benefit versus this temporary pilot. So with that, there was a recommendation that was put forward, and it was accepted by the board to end the admissions of the youth pilot. And we're going to we're going to target this with the closure of the program. But when the wait list is open, this will no longer be a pilot program for admission. We are also looking to remove the within the disability connection. The housing grant program historically has relied on applicants that are deemed total or permanently disabled, that have either are in receipt and deemed disabled through veterans or civil service, or having any possession of any long-term disability benefits or Social Security disability income, or have been automatically eligible. But earlier on in the creation of the housing grant program, there was an add-on to the disability category that extended eligibility to those that were connected to behavioral health. So we're talking about either a link to our community services board, either intellectual disability or developmental disability or substance use programs. And what we've just found out is with the removal of the residency requirement that happened in February of at the top of this year for not only housing, but our shelter programs, that link to county programs for the purposes of qualifying someone as disabled has created, some pressures on our Department of Human Services system. It has increased sort of the administrative screenings for services for the sheer purpose of people wanting to connect to those services solely for the purpose of a housing grant, whether they were truly disabled or not, or needed those services. So we are proposing to remove the linkage to county supported behavioral health. Initially, it was added because we didn't have a PSH local program here in Arlington County at that time. Now we have programs like PSH, which is another avenue for those that might have a disability or are working with county connected behavioral health programs that may need housing supports, can be referred through those channels. So those are two big removals that are happening in the updated policy. In terms of amendments, we've amended the way our program is operating recertification. So what we're going to do is start working on the front end to ensure households have continued eligibility with ample time before their recertification dates to make sure that they're still eligible for the program. And so this kind of pairs with the hardship reprieve concept that I previously mentioned in another slide, as we'll be working at least 90 days in advance of their annual recertification to make sure that all households have what they need to remain eligible, and or we can assist them to make sure that they regain their categorical eligibility requirement before their anniversary date within the program. And then one of the other areas that the board recommended was that, the housing grant program also look for ways to modernize our resident interaction with the program, as well as, how recertifications or, interim changes are being experienced. So with our system of record Yardi, we are testing and we will be building out a resident portal so that we can have these two-way communication channels through, no more paper process for those that, don't opt for it. We'll be able to digitize and put everything electronically through a system and a portal that will help us create some efficiency. So that is also coming soon and will be led by our senior specialist, Casey Songster, as well, rolling that out to existing participants in our program. And then while we're here, again, we've got our October 2026 is our charge for this wait list. We've got a number of communication plans and projects and materials that we are feverishly developing, just waiting for the final signature on these admin regs so that we can hit go. We realize this is going to be a big undertaking and really an education component that we need to hit the ground running with the community. So which is why we're also here with you all this week, is to start getting the message out about these changes that are to come. We're hoping to have, all materials translated. I mean, the board is definitely interested in as simple and as easy we can create infographics and videos around the changes that are anticipated to come in October. This team is working hard and fast to get those materials ready. We realize we're going to have a number of technical assistance stations stood up throughout the community, particularly when our open enrollment period is open. So we look forward to re-engaging with our library partners and staff, as well as advocates that are in the community that support, this targeted population for this opportunity. So you will all probably hear and see my staff's faces on more than one occasion from now to the summer until October. Anything that you all need in terms of additional documentation, flyers, we will be having sort of a talking point, like high-level fact sheet talking point that we'll give to each of the commission chairs. That's one of the things that came up during our briefings with the board, that we should make available to help make this message as digestible as possible, given the circumstances. And any questions? I'll definitely share these slides so you'll have our contact information.
Thank you, Nicole, and to your team. Unfortunately to me, the main thrust of the changes to the housing grant program is it represents a failure of housing advocates in Arlington, myself included, this year, to convince the board this was a population worth fighting for. That's my view. That the board made the determination that other priorities were more important than low-income folks on housing grants. They certainly didn't have the resources to pull together last-minute campaigns and, lawn signs to make sure that the board didn't cut this program. To me, we have a lot more work to do in the housing space to advocate for the needs of low-income folks in Arlington, because what you just described is there's going to be a whole bunch of low-income people who aren't going to get supported. There's some positive changes too that you talked about. And again, I appreciate the hard work that staff is doing to implement, the decision that the board made. But it's hard for me to look at this as anything other than a failure of advocacy. Because people are going to suffer. There's going to be more homeless people. There's going to be more people who can't afford to live in our community. It's going to be a worse community as a result. And it's disappointing. I know times are tough financially, but these are the folks that we should be prioritizing, in my view. I'm just disappointed, but I know you guys are doing your best to help people on a daily basis. Did we have a question or comment from any of the commissioners online? Okay, any from commissioners at the table? Well, thank you again for your time and for your efforts to serve folks who need help in Arlington. And let's actually want to hold comments from the public because I know we have our site plan applicants who have another commission to get to in about 20 minutes. So if we could probably just go into that, then yeah, and I think we can do public comment after that then, just because of the schedule.
If my comment is regarding housing grant, not public comment, what do you think?
I think we don't have time right now. Like we have to hear the site plan. So
Thank
we
you.
can certainly have you provide your comments to the commission. I don't know if DHS staff is able to stay on. But yeah, certainly the commission can hear it after we hear the site plan agenda item.
Also happy to pass any questions along to DHS staff.
Yep.
We appreciate it. We appreciate all your support and advocacy as well as getting this word out about October. So thank you all for having us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, next item on our agenda is 1401.
You want to call the meeting to order?
Oh, we already did that.
Are you done?
Yeah,
Now we have a quorum. So we're good.
we do have a quorum, yes.
So I can. Would you like me to come? Absolutely. Thank you. So I can love the presentation here. And then we also have Melissa Danowski online for staff for any questions as well.
You guys can go ahead and start.
Okay, yeah, great. So some of my team already went upstairs to transportation. So thank you, members of the commission. I'm Tim Helmig with Monday Properties, CEO of the company. By way of background, Monday Properties has been involved in Roslyn since the late 1950s. We developed over 14 buildings in the Roslyn submarket. What you see before you is a major site plan amendment, whereby we are amending a 2014 approval, wherein we had in that approval a large office building on the south side of the site, and on the north edge of the site, we had a multifamily residential building. So before you, what you're seeing now is that we are asking the commissions and the board to consider revising that site plan to allow for converting the office building to another multifamily building. So there'd be two twin towers on the site, both on the north and on the south, along with over 28,000 square feet of ground floor retail, in which one of the retail units is designed for a urban grocer concept. So if you'd like to go through, this is some of our team members. What was important to us was to maintain the integrity of the 2014 approval, which was, widely reviewed and we think supported by the board back then and by the community then. And as we've talked to the community over the last 24 months before we filed our 4.1, there was a lot of feelings about that 2014 approval and the desire to carry forward many of the characteristics. So you see the team members up there, led by Shalom Baronis as our architect and Parker Rodriguez as our landscape architect. So next slide. Here's where it sits in Roslyn. To the south, it's bounded by Wilson Boulevard, and to the east, Nash, to the north, Key Boulevard, and to the west, North Oak. Key ingredient here is at the corner of Oak and Wilson, to the bottom of North Nash and Key, there's about a 42-foot drop off grade change. So we have a lot to contend with as far as grade change. Much of the parking is underground as consistent with the Roslyn sector plan. Next slide. So here is the zoning. Here are the two existing office buildings that have been vacant for several years. They were largely occupied by Department of Defense and other GSA agencies, but had since moved out. So the sector plan, it's a CO Roslyn. It's within the club guidance, you know, for high office, hotel, or residential. The plan calls for 2 towers of 300 feet. A minimum of 30% residential and vibrant retail. It does call for the start of what they call the 18th Street corridor, which is an aspirational goal of the Roslyn sector plan to create a visual connection from the west to the east down to the river, called the 18th Street corridor, which this project will allow that vision to commence. It also calls for being sensitive to the edge conditions in Colonial Terrace in the neighborhood and enhanced pedestrian connectivity and strong retail, obviously. Next slide. So this was the original approval that I referenced back in 2014, 10 OFAR. Again, you see that on the plan on the bottom right of the screen, was on the left side is the old office building. And on the right side was a Key Boulevard tower that we're largely keeping in place. What is on this plan, we did have an urban grocer concept, but it was accessed onto Key Boulevard. And there was a park over top of the roof of the grocer, which was accessible at grade, but terracing up. And you'll see that we were committing to sustainability for the office and the residential. Next slide. And here is the change in the plan. In the foreground, you see on the northern building, this is the new residential building that is now proposed. It's skinnier. So what we were able to do was increase the open space now allocated to the site. We are maintaining the height that is allowable under the sector plan. The total units is 831 units across both buildings. The GFA is about 887 square feet. As I referenced, a little under 29,000 square feet of retail, 602 parking spaces, bike parking also, and visitor bike parking. And again, the concept was to kind of preserve the integrity of the original plan, uphold the tower separation that's outlined in the sector plan, and honor our commitments for sustainability. One thing that this plan offers also is that 52% of the entire site area is open space, which is unheard of in any CO Roslyn project. So you'll see as we go through these slides, kind of how voluminous that open space is. Next slide. Here's your kind of unit count and average unit sizes for the buildings. You'll see that the Key Boulevard building has a little larger units on average versus the 1401 building, which is to your plan on the left side. There's also greater separation between the towers in this plan versus the 2014 plan, offering more light and air for both buildings. Next slide. Here are the new ground floor retail that we are now ascribing to the project. The nice thing about this retail layout is now we have retail on all kind of four sides of each street, which is really unique. The grocer will be accessed off the 18th Street Corridor Plaza, which is called for in the Roslyn Sector Plan. And on the Wilson Tower on the left, you'll have a large retail bay there, retail bays as you go around the Wilson building as well. Now you'll also see that the 18th Street corridor is wider now because of the smaller configuration of the towers. We've also moved the grocer parking onto Oak Street. As time has evolved on Key Boulevard, traffic has gotten exasperated there. So the relief of taking the entrance of the grocer off of Key, along with the grocer parking off of Key, and now onto Oak, was met with, I believe, appreciation from the community and staff. Next slide. This just highlights, the separation between the two towers. You can see the outline of the old office building in the red. Now it's, over almost 20 feet wider, the separation. And on the right part of the slide, you can see the vision that's outlined in the sector plan for the 18th Street corridor. Next slide. So we work with staff and the community really intently on the final design of this plaza area. It was originally approved as just kind of an open palette for someone like the bid to curate, or for it to kind of just be a natural area. But what staff challenged us, and I believe the community as well, is make this very unique and a unique experience by really, programming it differently than any other outdoor space that we see in Roslyn. And in particular, as folks travel up Wilson Boulevard and kind of the path of travel to the western side of Roslyn, the ability to traverse through this and have an experience other than just, open space to walk through. We've curated it with a lot of different, kind of respite areas, bringing in natural boulders that are meant to be seating areas. And then often, different access points for the pedestrian, whether it's coming up from Wilson and Nash up to the plaza, or from, Wilson and Oak coming down Oak into the plaza, and then obviously coming up North Nash. You'll see that this stair that's here is really trying to bridge that grade change that we talked about. That's almost 30 feet of grade change that we have to bridge. So again, worked with staff really to make this very unique.
I just want to say, not to cut you off, since I know you guys have your 8:15 and staff still has to go. And you guys had come and presented in May, and I think we were very supportive of the plan. Are there any key changes from May to now that
Just
makes sense to highlight, or?
not really.
Okay.
Yeah. We've made some transportation changes to the bicycle lanes and things of that nature. The loading's been modified slightly. So I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, sorry.
No problem. I get it. This is kind of just showing entry points into the project. A lot of bikes, a lot of electric vehicles, charging stations, things of that nature.
I just flipped through the rendering.
Yeah, and these are just some of the renderings. It's just looking east.
Sounds good. Staff wanna go on your part of it?
Yes, so I will turn it over to Melissa Danowski, who's online to do staff's, present the handout that staff had.
Yes, thank you. Hopefully everyone can hear me.
Yep.
Okay, and hopefully everyone can also see the handout I just put on screen. So I will go fairly quickly and not necessarily read this verbatim, but just highlight the affordable housing program for the site. So it will contain two components. First is the base affordable housing contribution, where the applicant has a choice of a roughly 3.76 million cash contribution to AHIF or approximately 17 on-site, 25 off-site, nearby, or 33 off-site cash anywhere in the county. In addition to that, and in accordance with the Roslyn Sector Plan, the applicant has committed to make an additional cash contribution of $6 million to AHIF for the earn density. And the Roslyn Sector Plan does say to direct up to 30% of the value of community benefits contributed by the Roslyn Coordinated Redevelopment District towards affordable housing, and that the value would be evaluated on a site plan basis to determine the best use, on-site units, or cash contribution. And then cash should be prioritized to the extent feasible for CAFs in the Roslyn Metro Station area. So although the 6 million cash contribution to AHIP represents approximately 25% of the proposed community benefits package, the plan also recognizes instances of extraordinary in-kind improvements and should be considered in conjunction with requests for additional density. So in addition to the affordable housing contribution, the community benefits package also includes construction and long-term maintenance of that critical segment of 18th Street corridor and other offsite public space and transportation improvements. So we do think that the affordable housing contribution is in balance with the other community benefits that the Roslyn Sector Plan calls for. And we do think the community benefits package for affordable housing is appropriate. And to the extent feasible, we will prioritize use of the funds within the Roslyn Metro Station area. We do have, developers that apply through our AHIF Notice of Funding Availability, or NOFA, receive highest points in the geographic distribution section of their application if it's within the Metro corridor or nearby links and Boulevard. So if that $6 million cash contribution is leveraged at the county AHIF per unit, average subsidy of about $115,000 per unit, approximately 52 offsite units affordable to households earning up to 60% of the AMI would be created at future affordable housing developments. In comparison, if there was on-site units as opposed to a cash contribution, only about 11 CAFs could likely have been negotiated. The reason is the market rents in the submarket are just some of the most expensive in Arlington. These units will also have premium finishes and amenities. So as a result, there's a large delta between the market and affordable rents, which leads to an average cost of almost $547,000 per affordable unit for purposes of calculating this community benefits value. Also, CAFs leveraged through a cash contribution to AHIF will be affordable for 75 years or more. And that's at least 2.5 times as long as the standard site plan term of 30 years. So that contribution will be split into 6 payments, essentially 3 payments per tower, with the last payment of each tower coming before the issuance of the partial certificate of occupancy for tenant occupancy for the last floor of that tower. And lastly, we did look at racial equity and asked the following questions when considering racial impacts of this county project. So who benefits, who is burdened, who is missing, how do we know, and what did we do? So the 24 American Community Survey produces 5-year estimates for the racial composition of census tracts. The data indicates that essentially it's very similar, really white and black populations in the census tract where this site plan is located as compared to the county as a whole. There is a larger Asian population, while the multiracial and combined populations are proportionately smaller in this census tract where the site plan is located than the county as a whole. There are also less Hispanic or Latino origin populations in this census tract compared to countywide. So the cash contribution would benefit and enable income eligible families to live in Arlington. Again, as I said, if it's leverage at the average 115,000 per unit, about 52 offsite units could be created at future affordable housing developments. In terms of who is burdened, the anticipated units created from the cash contribution through the AHIP program will be affordable up to 60% AMI and may be able to serve those with very low incomes. So, that 30% AMI category, and who may not be eligible for housing grants or housing choice vouchers. unlike on-site cash generated from site plans, which they're generally affordable at that max 60% AMI level. But missing from this opportunity will be CAF units serving households on site. However, to the extent feasible, the county will prioritize use of funds within the RMSA. And we know this based on the census tract information for this geographic area. And in terms of what we do, the county has the opportunity to consider the site plan's proposed affordable housing program in light of these benefits. So the staff recommendation is for approval of the affordable housing program, which meets the county's affordable housing policies and includes an own density contribution of $6 million. Thanks, and happy to help answer questions.
Thank you. I know we have 2 public comment folks. First is Alice.
Good evening. Thank you. I wanted to thank the developer and staff for their work on this project. I just wanted to emphasize a little bit about the value of the community benefits package. While it is a little bit low, 25%, not 30%, I think all of the other site improvements will be great for residents in all of Rosslyn, including folks coming and going across this property on the 18th Street extension, including from Queens Court, which is an affordable building just up the hill. Just to emphasize what Melissa had said about the balance between cash contributions and on-site units, I feel that, we need to remind ourselves that, 11 units in this building for 30 years is what we would get versus accepting that cash contribution and getting like 4 to 5 times as many units for 60 to 100 years. And so while those units may not be in this structure, in the kind of crisis that we experience in Arlington around housing, I think the importance of volume of affordable units is paramount. So, people wonder about a building that's not mixed income, and that is unfortunate. And I think in the beginning, 25 and 30 years ago in Arlington, that was the whole goal was, mixed income buildings so that people really were together. And, our market has changed so drastically that goal, while we can still work towards it, is very short-sighted, and we leave a lot of units on the table. So, I think we can keep in mind that in this day and age, a diverse community, an integrated community neighborhood, that's what we can go for and best use our very scarce resources. So the kids will still play together from building to building and go to the same schools. The parents will shop at all the grocery store, Target, whatever, walk their dogs, same neighborhood. So there is togetherness and an integrated community neighborhood, even though if it's not within that exact building. So I do feel like the county really needs to use its resources to the best and highest use. And for me, when we look at this in a cost benefit analysis, it's an imperfect situation that we're in. It's a crisis for housing for as many folks as we can help. And so it's most prudent to accept, the contribution that will support 5 times as many CAFs and for 3 times as long in a building somewhere nearby there that would provide services and supports that specific low-income population could use in order to flourish in Arlington. So I encourage you to support the recommendations of the staff.
Thank you, Alice. Next is Stuart.
Yes, I'm here representing Ray Farm. We believe the project before you fits very well into the goals, vision, and framework of Realize Rosslyn. It's a welcome addition, large number of much needed residential units. We share, however, NRCA's concerns for safety with all modes of transportation in the streets surrounding the development, particularly concerns about pickup and drop off, which is such a huge problem in Rosslyn. In our Ray Farm area, we greatly value diversity. I was originally drawn to an area in Granite Heights where billionaires, some of the most affordable units in Arlington, were within a block of each other. We have lost a lot of that affordable housing. And if this project was in our area, we would have pushed for on-site. We have in the past expressed our concerns with 30 years for site plans and extending the term, as we have very much always tried to dig deeper as far as 30% for some family. And just remember, nearby is not necessarily, not for this project, but this project, if you do choose a nearby option, which I don't think is what's going to happen, I would hope you follow through with nearby being really nearby, because actually it's not down the street, it's not across the street necessarily. It can be anywhere along the corridors. However, we do recognize that affordable units are not the first priority in all situations. And each plan is individual and balances the importance of each priority in each area. This project, we feel, will be a very important addition to our neighbor, Roslyn. As I have said, it will further the goals, vision, and framework of Realize Roslyn, and many hours of planning that went into that.
Thank you. Now opening it up to jurors for questions or comments.
Just from my understanding, the current buildings on there are office buildings. They are not housing.
Correct,
So we would go from a net zero housing to net housing.
correct.
Just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Other questions, comments?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Anika.
You said you have 28,000 square, and that's just for the grocery, or is it for other?
17 is for the grocer, the
Okay.
balance is for other potential retail uses.
I know it might be too early, but do you have potential grocers who are looking at that spot? Because 28,000.
We talked about this. I want a Wegmans.
Last time that satisfies the.
Wegmans has the urban store concept now, so it could work.
It could work.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, second vote for the
Wegmans
Wegmans.
I would love a
Need a Wegmans in Arlington.
Yeah.
It's like-
You need all their loading requirements.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing.
Right.
Physical box and the loading, we meet their requirements. That's, the loading is half the challenge in this situation.
Joe?
Okay, so I'm speaking from two hats. First, from the Housing Commission. Secondly, as president of the North Roslyn Civic Association. From the Housing Commission, I think this is a out-of-the-box, totally awesome development. The Affordable Housing Program, Melissa, if I do my math, we're almost looking at $10 million going to AHIF. And Alice, I kind of agree with, I agree with you. Mixed income used to be good, but Arlington is so small, it doesn't matter. I mean, we have Queens Court and Roslyn. It's a great area. And I think the design should get an award. The design, if you look at those two white ugly buildings now, and I went there years ago to get my Social Security when I turned 65. They're ugly, and the drop is phenomenal. And what they're doing with that 18th Street corridor is just phenomenal. It really will dress up Roslyn, improve everyone's property values. It's just terrific. I'm also amplifying that from the Civic Association, and as Stuart said, our concern, and we're working with you all, with pickups and drop-offs. Roslyn is crazy with all these developments for the new gig economy, and it's just terrible. But I know with the new grocer, hopefully there'll be the radiuses for deliveries and stuff like that. But I can't wait for this project to be approved, primarily since we only have one food choice there, and that's the Safeway. and the limited food in Target. So it'll be a welcome addition to the neighborhood, and I can't wait to see the grand opening. Thank you. And Monday Properties is a great neighbor in Roslyn.
Any other comments, questions from commissioners? Okay, yeah, I mean, I think we said back in May, we thought this was a very good project. Excited about the affordable housing contributions. You know, as Alice had brought up, I don't think the research has borne out that mixed income developments provide the benefits we thought they would. Mixed neighborhood, they do from an integration standpoint, but I think mixed income, like housing buildings, you see benefits from a cost perspective, but not from an actual, you know, helpful for low income or for racial minorities, from an integration and those types of goals. So yeah, I mean, if there is an ability to have some units in the building, I think that's always a plus. But I think the money will be super helpful wherever it ends up getting used for AHIP. Do we have a motion to?
Can I have one more?
Yep.
Because of the substantial grade differential between the areas, what level of concern was taken for the physically disabled?
So we have, fortunately, we don't have that slide, but we have accessible ability throughout the site. And to your point, it was a very significant challenge. We worked with staff to really make it universal. So there's no differentiation from someone who doesn't have an, you know, a physical disability versus someone who does. We have a permanent elevator that actually, as you're coming to approach that stair, the person who doesn't have a disability can go right down the stair. The person who does have a disability, the elevator is right there. It empties out right at the bottom of where the stair is.
Mhm.
So that's available 24/7. There are grade changes coming from Wilson and Nash. We've allowed for ADA access along that grade. And obviously on Oak, where it's flatter, it was an easier solve. We do have a slide that does show all the accessible routes, so we can forward that to the commission.
I just worry about that.
Yeah, I don't remember specifically. Okay. Joe,
Usually adopt the site.
okay, is there a second? Or move that we recommend?
Recommend.
Recommend, yeah.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote. I vote yes. Commissioner Coleman? You're on mute if you're talking. Come back to Brian. Commissioner Surface is not online, right?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Schwartz is off. Okay, Commissioner Blake?
Yes.
Commissioner Ventrone?
Yes.
Commissioner Linnick?
Yes.
Commissioner Piero?
Yes.
Commissioner Montgomery?
Yes.
And Commissioner Ross?
Yeah.
Okay, and Commissioner Coleman? Okay, well, it passes unanimously for those who were voting. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
you for those in attendance for making that happen.
Of course.
Thank you
Thanks
all.
for being here.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so we can go back to public comment at the beginning. And then we'll,
Brian votes aye.
oh, Brian did?
He put it in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we don't have one of the public speakers now. We just have Alice. So, yeah, if we could do that and then go to Rich.
We get written comments or anything from the other public speaker, or?
There was written public comments. I will read. She said,
Oh, was she the same one who sent that in advance?
yes.
Okay, so I read that.
Okay, yeah, she said, she had to leave the meeting, but just wants to make sure that everyone on the commission gets a copy of the attachment, and that's all she really.
Okay,
Um,
sounds good. Alice, if you want to provide your overall public comment and then your housing grant public comment, you are welcome to do that now.
Sure, thank you so much. So just a reminder, I'm Alice Hogan. I am the Arlington Director for NVAHA, which is a Northern Virginia Affordable Housing Alliance. I'm here with you most every month, so you probably know me by now. I just wanted to highlight that I think Alex was able to forward our July newsletter to each of you so that you can take a look at what's happening in Arlington and then around our Northern Virginia region in terms of housing, affordable housing in particular. And in that newsletter, there's an invitation which I wanted to extend to all of you. NVAHA offers a monthly virtual lunch and learn. And in July, we will be having a virtual bus tour. So each summer we highlight usually 3 developments in the Northern Virginia area that have, come to fruition from different perspectives. And it just gives you a sense of what's happening in different communities. So we have Cardinal Path, which is an affordable home ownership opportunity project, a small scale in Alexandria. And then there's another one, I'm forgetting the name of it right now, in Fairfax, which is an all senior building. And then in Arlington, we'll be highlighting the Holy Legacy Homes building, which is the one that was a partial redevelopment of the Marbella Apartments on the other side of Arlington Boulevard in Rosslyn. So that is going to be on now I don't have the date. I think it's Thursday, the 29th. Let me just verify that. I'm sorry, I put that away. Wednesday, the 29th of July. It's at noontime. It's a free event, so feel free to join us for that. And then I just also wanted to reach out and offer you all my own invitation to our monthly meetings. So we have a group in Arlington that comes together on the second Wednesday of every month, just Arlington folks. The first thing I mentioned is NVAHA wide, but in Arlington, it's called the Housing Action Arlington. And we're just a coalition of practitioners and advocates, service providers. And it's a place, again, to learn what's going on in Arlington and discuss any issues. So we don't meet in August. So if you wanted to mark your calendar, it will be September the 9th, also at noontime. And that, feel free to be in touch with me or check our website if you would like to join either of those events. So that is my set of comments for public comment. Did you want me to continue?
Sure.
You were saying regarding the housing grant program. Okay, I wanted to thank the staff because, as Kellen had said, it's a very disappointing set of circumstances we find ourselves in as a county, having to cap this super important program and a very important part of our housing safety net in Arlington. So I know they've been working really hard to implement something they probably don't even want to implement. So a big thank you to them for that. I wanted to ask because they had mentioned they expected up to 15,000 applicants. And I don't know if that's just because that's what they've gotten with the housing choice voucher or why they think they'll get so many. I also had been told in the past that the attrition rate with this program is typically 11 grants per year. So I wanted to know if they thought that would be the same. So if they're taking 500 onto a wait list and they expect 11 to exit for one reason or another each year, it's going to be a very slow process. And then of the 11 that I was told by other staff, many of those were folks that she described, in that attrition component of the presentation where they might, they lost their job or, some other situation came up where they lost eligibility to the housing grant, or maybe they're housing altogether. And many times they end up back in the shelter. And then their plan to get out again is get another job, apply for the housing grant and try again. And so this is a very volatile situation and a really vulnerable population. So I'm hoping that's what she's talking about when they have some flex money to deal with families that are, literally homeless. So that I think is just something we all need to watch for and maybe within a few months, the Housing Commission might want to ask for an update about how it's going, like in the new year or something. And then I just, she said that many of the folks who, they're taking other forms of disability out of the criteria now. So putting those over into permanent sort of supportive housing means we really need to keep an eye over there, because that program is never funded adequately. And in fact, in the past, we've had affordable complexes that wanted to dedicate more units for permanent supportive housing units and couldn't do so because there wouldn't be staff money on the county side to support those folks in those units. So we're pushing them over into a program that's already maxed out isn't really an answer. So again, I think we need to keep a close eye on that population. And then I also wanted to ask about marketing to seniors. She seemed to have a list of a lot of folks who would be hearing about these changes, but I didn't see anything that targeted the older population in Arlington. So those were my questions and concerns, and that's my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Appreciate the comments, and not to belabor the points on housing grants and how disappointed I am. I mean, just the eligibility changes too. I mean, I've worked directly with Nicole and other staff to try to get people into the program, specifically through their association with DHS behavioral health programs, which is now going away. And that was a way that people who were either on the verge of homelessness or already homeless, but were working and trying to save up enough money to get a place to stay and needed extra help. So we're shutting that door to them because, as far as I know, PSH does not have, a lot of new units sitting around waiting for people. So it's a terrible situation. And I think I would quibble with the word choice at the beginning where you said that this is something that, we have to do as a county. This is a choice that our leadership made. I don't think this is something they had to do. They prioritized other things in the budget over the housing grant program. People can argue whether that was, the best choice to make. I disagree. I don't think it was, but certainly other folks who had other priorities, may think that they made the best choice they could. But I think a lot of people are going to suffer and hurt because of it. And I hope that we can come up with a better plan for FY 2028 and the future, because it seems like we're just closing the door on new housing applicants or new housing grant applicants, unless they manage to get in that 14-day window, because it might be shot for the next 10 years, which is very disappointing.
Kellen, I just meant have to implement this year because a decision has already been made. And so staff has to implement what the new changes will be. And then I think as we watch very closely and may need to advocate differently going forward. So.
Yeah. And for the county that studies everything to death, this was not studied at all. It was because it's a budgetary decision. So we're going to study before we spend money, but we're not going to study before we cut funds to see how many people are actually screwed over by this change, or how many people are going to suffer and be harmed. We don't have that data because, it was a question of, do we actually want to spend the money on this? So disappointing. Maybe that's something to Baja, working with the community foundation, or someone can help get some numbers on how many people are actually going to be hurt by this, so that the board, when they consider whether or not to keep the wait list in place next year, has some real numbers on, 500 people, won't be able to live in Arlington, or 200 people will remain homeless because of this change, or whatever the numbers may be. Thank you. I'd like to take a 5-minute break. I know our climate action plan folks are patiently waiting, but I do want to take a quick 5-minute bio break, and then we can jump back into that.
So I can turn it over to Rich Dooley.
Okay, thanks so much. Many thanks to Chair McBeth for giving me the opportunity to provide everyone here on the commission with an update on the county's ambitious initiative to develop the county's first comprehensive climate action plan. Special thanks to the commission representative from this group, Jason Schwartz, for his work as well. We greatly value his input as we move along in this process of developing our climate action plan. My name is Rich Dooley. I'm the Director of Climate Policy for Arlington County. I'm in the Climate Policy Office, which is part of the County Manager's Office. This new plan is going to be building on the foundation of our Community Energy Plan, also known as the CEP, which is currently an element of the Arlington Comprehensive Plan. We'll be updating that CEP and replacing it with this broader, more integrated approach to addressing climate change. And while the CEP is focused on climate mitigation and some resilience measures, this new climate action plan will expand the scope to include additional sectors critical to achieving a sustainable and resilient future, such as a circular economy, as well as healthy ecosystems. On the slide down the lower left-hand side, you will see our project logo, which is ACT. Stands for Arlington Climate Together. That acronym highlights the fact that everyone in our community has a role to play to address the impacts of climate change. Special thanks also to Alex for facilitating this back and forth in order to get me here on tonight's meeting. As for the agenda for tonight, I'll move through this as quickly as I can. We'll provide project information, talk a bit about specific climate challenges here in Arlington, talk about the project overview, how we've been engaging and will continue to engage with the public, and then offer it up for any sort of discussion you have. And then last but not least, talk about next steps. So here's our project team. I want to thank all the numerous people in the county, all the departments been involved with this, our consulting team, which is AECOM. I'd be here all night if I thanked everybody who's been involved in this, but our core team is listed here. The main representatives from each of these groups are listed here. And we've been working hard since the end of February in working on developing the climate action plan. In addition to the staff core team, we also have an interdepartmental working group consisting of staff from multiple county departments. This is an all of government, all of community approach, and so it's important to have everybody involved. And with our climate action plan advisory group, we have a co-chair, and that is Cindy Lewin, who is also the C2E2 chair. And so we've been working together with her. The advisory group has met three times already, and our fourth meeting is coming up at the end of this month. Now, climate change impacts each location in the world differently. In the next few slides, we'll highlight the main hazards that we're going to be focusing on here in Arlington. So one of the first ones, which we've been feeling recently, is the rising heat, extreme temperatures that we've been receiving. And so there's a lot of information on this plot and on this graph, but the red plot line going from left to right, showing overall trends. This is the average annual temperature dating back to the late 1800s all the way to present day. So at the bottom line on the far left-hand side, back in the late 1800s, it was 54 degrees for the year. And then most recently, it is close to 60 degrees. So it has been a steady climb ever since the late 1800s. And we don't see that changing as we move forward. While climate reports may not highlight Arlington by name, Northern Virginia is right in the crosshairs of this extreme heat and increasing heat challenges. So on the right-hand side, you see days above 90 degrees in the Washington area and how it's projected to increase over time. And so again, that's on the left-hand side shows why it matters and some of the things that are impacted by that, whether it's infrastructure, public health, or our emergency services and the strains that they currently endure as well as will endure on into the future. So now we pivot from heat to rainfall. As many of you have, if you've been here, 2019, we had a severe storm come through here in the morning. It turned roads into rivers, and so extreme precipitation is unfortunately increasingly common here in Arlington. And what this graph shows, or this map I should shows projected increases in days with heavy rainfall, which we say is more than 2 inches of rain in an event, by the year 2100. And so our area is going to continue to be impacted by these intense rainfall events. As you warm the air, essentially that warmer air allows for more water vapor in it. And with that more water vapor, you have greater likelihood of the extreme rainfall events. And why does that matter? Well, we have, unfortunately, our piping system was built out many years ago to varying standards. Much of the system does not meet modern standards for both pipe capacity as well as overland relief. So what that means is we need to use and design the landscape around us to allow overflow to be conveyed safely. And our current program is very focused on providing more capacity where we can, but also providing overland relief. And that overland relief, if your house is in the way of some of that overland relief, then it turns into flooding in people's basements, which once again was a big thing back in the 2019 storm. So we've also developed something called the Risk Assessment Management Plan not too long ago to address some of these flood resilient Arlington matters. So the highlight here that I want to mention is that our Climate Action Plan is going to do a few different things. It's going to knit together a variety of different plans and programs that are already in place and point to them and say, we're already addressing these things and we have programs in place to go ahead and do it. So it's not trying to recreate the wheel. It's simply saying it's all things climate across all of our various departments. We're trying to be that central resource and that central hub to show people all the various things that are going on or need to go on so that we can address climate change accordingly. So there's no silver bullet to addressing climate change. It takes many actions to reduce emissions causing climate change. That's also known as mitigation. And then through the use of adaptation as well as resilience measures, we will work to manage the risks associated with those climate change impacts. So this is from the current community energy plan. This is what we affectionately call the wedge graph. And it shows on the left-hand side our baseline year of 2007, and then a glide path all the way down to 2050, where that is our current goal of becoming carbon neutral, and the various facets or goal areas that are involved in helping us get there. And whether it's reducing emissions from buildings or transportation or from the grid, it's all involved. And there's not just one way to go ahead and do it. So pivoting now to the project itself, it is an 18 to 24 month project. It sets out to include everyone in Arlington. To note that together we can cut the polluting emissions that cause climate change while adapting and becoming more resilient for a safer and a healthier future. So I'll provide the slide deck to Alex, who can forward it off to you after the meeting. But in essence, we're trying to address all the things that are on this slide and proceeding as swiftly as possible, recognizing that with community engagement takes time. So we're splitting our project process into 4 phases. We've just finished the left-hand phase, which is phase 1, looking at vision as well as goal areas for the overall project and for the overall plan. We're now into phase 2, which is now diving a little bit deeper into more prioritizing strategies and actions. So that process will continue on into the fall, and then we'll continue on with the next 2 phases, which is winter, spring, which is fine-tuning the policy and the strategy development, and then wrapping that all up into a draft climate action plan in 2027, ensuring that you all, as well as the whole community, gets an opportunity to look at it, weigh in on it, see if we got it right, what we're hearing from the community in crafting this climate action plan so that everyone can see themselves and the future of Arlington in that plan as we bring it forward to the county board in late 2027, early 2028. This is an overview of our public engagement. We've developed an overall stakeholder engagement and communications plan. Suffice it to say, we have enhanced coordination across all departments in the county as well as community stakeholders for a robust and comprehensive engagement effort using multiple means to reach and gather feedback from the departments as well as from residents and from businesses. We will be using in-person and virtual events as well as focus groups, interviewing a whole host of stakeholders, as well as other engagement tools to gather comments from the community. And what this slide shows is the various means by which we plan to engage the community. As I mentioned, we just wrapped up phase 1. We've had wonderful participation in our events. Our kickoff event at Central Library in late February. It was called Climate and Cuisine. We had standing room only in the Central Library auditorium. And then we had another 150 people online participate in that. We've also had open houses, We've had pop-ups and so forth. We're going to continue that vein, as well as the online version. We had a feedback form where we had of the order of 278 people respond to the questions in that feedback form. So more to come on that. In these next steps, we will continue doing engagement through the use of workshops, roundtables, doing focus groups with key stakeholder groups such as housing developers like Mr. Helmig here and his colleagues and his peers. We'll also be at the county fair. And we're going to go through, establish those goal areas at a high level and then drive down into strategies and those actions, as well as using a tool called the ASAP tool that our consultant is very familiar with to help us to integrate the values for our community, throw the actions that we say that we want to go ahead and do into the tool. And then by filtering it through those values, it'll prioritize, recognizing we can't do everything all at once. So it'll prioritize which of those actions we should take first, second, and third, and move on through with that. So I did my best to speed through the presentation, knowing the time of night it is, but I am happy to stay here and answer any questions that you have. And I thank you once again for your time.
Thank you for your briefing. Questions, comments from commissioners?
What's the regional partnership with this look like?
Regionally, we work together regularly with Northern Virginia Regional Commission, as well as with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments as regional entities to discuss everything from data centers to lessons learned from other communities on work that they're doing. And then seeing whether or not they can be applicable here. And so whether it's expanding the use of electric vehicles or integrating energy efficiency into low to moderate income family housing, whatever it might be, and providing financial incentives so as to facilitate the adoption of these different technologies. That's on an organization-wide basis, what we're doing regionally. But then we also have conversations with our peers, Fairfax County, Loudoun County, City of Alexandria, and so forth. And so we're in, I'd say, regular communications with them and partnering with them, such as with the City of Alexandria. We have what's called the Eco Ambassadors Program, working together with Eco Action Arlington to help fan out and get the word out to the public about the various opportunities, such as our Home Energy Hub, where if you're not familiar with it, anyone in Arlington can raise their hand and say, I have questions about energy efficiency in homes and how I can improve it. They can go ahead and sign up for a 30-minute consultation. So that's in consultation with, in coordination with others.
That's great. Anything specific with the water? I'm thinking about the spill or whatever it was. I know publicly there was like drama about who would pay for what.
Who would pay for what water? I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. So there are other staff within the county in Department of Environmental Services in particular that are looking at both kind of areas of water, provision of water, as well as how do we deal with drought. And so primarily Department of Environmental Services is involved in that. And then Jason Papacosma and his team are working on the RAMP, the Risk Assessment Management Plan, and implementing that. And you probably hear about purchasing up a house or a lot that has been in the crosshairs of previous storms, purchasing that property, taking the property down, and then using it to go ahead and to hold water as opposed to impact the people who live there. So that's an example of some of the work that they're doing to implement the measures in that risk assessment management plan.
Excellent, efficient presentation. Thank you.
Thanks.
Other questions, comments? So for the Housing Commission, what will be other opportunities for us to be engaged in the process? I know you went through the public engagement process, and we have a representative as part of the working group. But will there be other specific opportunities? Will you'll want feedback from a commission like ours, or is it mostly through our representative on the working group?
I would say the two big ways is to use Commissioner Schwartz, and I would encourage him to speak up at every meeting, because we are having monthly meetings with our CAP advisory group. So we're rolling through a lot of different things, and at different stages, there will be kind of ebbs and flows as to it's pure information, and that's all he'll say. And then there will be other instances where we ask for him to ask for his feedback as well as feedback from this group. And hopefully he's been doing that. So that's one thing. In addition to that, in the engagement plan, we do have built in periodic updates that we'll be sending directly to Alex to share with the chair. So the liaisons receive it, and then they go to the chairs of each of the commissions to share across the board. And so we will be providing those updates by email. And then last but not least, as we roll into 2027, we will likely be back with the culmination of all these efforts with a draft climate action plan and a brief presentation to explain all the things that we've heard from the community and the results of that and what we're planning on bring forward to the county board.
So these are going to be recommendations.
Yes.
Not mandates, like.
That's correct.
Like doing away with gas blowers. I mean, which are current, so this will be just a recommendation thing. I have one issue that's come up, and that's gas in residential, all right? Most of our multifamily buildings have water coolers on the roof that electric does not work efficiently. Gas is the only way to do it. And when you sit through all these meetings and SPRCs, the environmental people say, well, you don't, it's not electric. You don't have electric in that thing. Are you going to be looking at something like that? Because we have a lot of multifamily buildings in Arlington, and I can see having electric in ranges and stuff like that. But when you have a 300 unit building and you're trying to cool the entire building, you have these units on the roof. And apparently the electric is not efficient. Gas is far more efficient to take the volume and stuff like that.
So there are those in the community who are very much advocates for electrification, because once you do that, then you can take advantage of solar energy and so forth. So I also can identify with what you're talking about, because in the county, with our 90 or so facilities, our county staff are looking for opportunities to do electrification. And one example at Walter Reed is we have a boiler there. They did the analysis, and it just didn't make financial sense for us to go ahead and to make that change. It was just too cost prohibitive and not a wise use of our money. So we hear you and we understand.
That's my concern on building housing and stuff like that.
Yeah. So what we'd like people to know, whether they live in single family homes or multifamily homes, is to know what the opportunities are, what the technologies are, when and if equipment needs to be changed out, and what those opportunities might be, and streamline the process to let people go ahead and make the changes. I, for one, just did a home remodel. I had old systems, air conditioner, natural gas furnace, and it was my choice, and I needed upgrades, and I went with 2 electric heat pumps. They're more efficient, and I'm happier for.
I can see that in residential. I'm talking about the multifamily. Yep. Stuff like that. But thank you very much.
So you're very welcome.
Is the county doing anything? So I know the General Assembly just passed approval for what do they call it? Balcony solar, I think.
Plug-in PV is, yeah.
Is the county rolling out any guidance or like tools to help residents figure out if that will work for them, if they should do it?
Short answer is I am working together across multiple departments, including our permitting officials, which is the primary piece that's involved in this, to better understand the technologies and how they're going to actually permit these things. Because first of all, there's no manufacturers out there that have gotten their systems, the PIPV systems, listed under something called UL 3700. And so that's the overarching framework that they have to get listed under. Once that happens, the permitting officials need to figure out how to go about doing this. So in September, early September, we'll be part of a training session with regionally building permit officials to better learn from UL itself what's involved, what the permitting officials need to know, how we're going to go about doing this. None of this takes effect until January 1st of next year. So the 2 bills that passed in the last legislative session allow for this to happen January 1st. But I'm working backwards from that. And I say, wait, by January 1st, I want us to be ready so that if anyone in this room says, I want it installed, we're not standing flat footed and saying, what? So my job is to go ahead and make that happen. And I can tell you, as of today, we've had conversations about it and we'll work toward it, but there's nothing currently because it's a work in progress. but it's on our radar. We're working on it.
Additionally, do you all have guidance or tools for, so I live in a condo development that is, like at most 3 stories, but it's a lot, like kind of, I don't want to say row houses because they're not row houses, but, it's in Arlington, the Arlington condos. I've always wondered, I have no control over whether they do solar panels on the roof, and even how that would work for, like I pay for my own electricity for my unit. Does the county work with condo associations who are in similar, situations? Like Arlington has a lot of similar type condos, where they're not high rises, they're maybe 3-4 stories at most. Do you all work with condo associations to help figure out like the best way to consider, reducing their energy costs and consumption?
So over the years, and we've been at this since 10 plus years ago, working together with Virginia Solar United Neighbors, Virginia Sun. And it's been primarily with single family homes. And all throughout this time, we've gone to them saying, how can we work together with multifamily, with condo associations and so forth? And they just say, the laws are such that it can't happen with condo associations because like you said, the electricity is being paid by the individual condo owners, not by the condo association. So there's a disconnect, unfortunately, with what's going on. One example of how it can happen is through community solar. But here in our wonderful Commonwealth, Dominion Energy has made it such that community solar is really controlled by them, which is not the case in other places like DC and elsewhere. And because of that, those hindrances are further layered onto this. So it's not that I'm saying no, never. I'm just saying not currently. There's not a path forward. But if that's of interest to you, reach out to your legislatures, tell them, legislators, tell them in the next legislative session to make this happen because you want it on your condo buildings and clear the pathway for that because that's how it would have to happen.
I mean, we are talking about legislative priorities right after this, but okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, next item on our agenda is legislative priorities discussion. So I had sent out about 30 minutes before the meeting was set to start, a draft list of 10 priorities that our subcommittee led by Nikki had come up with for consideration for the commission. So just wanted to reiterate for everyone that you're not bound by this list of 10. We can consider other ones, although if we want to have a shorter meeting, it's probably better to consider, what the subcommittee has put forward. So these are the recommended ones. We don't have to stick with 10. It could be less, it could be more. This year, the board has asked us to use the survey form to individually submit every single separate legislative priority, which last month I'd expressed frustration that that's a process that makes it easy for them and harder for us. And we're volunteers and they get paid. So that didn't seem to make sense to me, but I have not been told they made any changes as a result of that feedback. So I still want to do a letter to them with all of our recommendations because that's also the public record. The survey, as far as I know, is not a public record. So we would also do the survey in addition to our letter. And I believe that's what July 30th is when they want all of that submitted to them. Yep. So Nikki, did you want to add anything from the subcommittee?
No, I think we had good discussion, healthy debate, looked at, I'd say 26, almost 30 priorities for consideration originally and went on it down to 10.
Yeah, being on the committee, I think it was a great process. Thank to Nikki multitasking on the computer, which I could not do with my dyslexia, but we went through a process of 2, 3, and 4. And this is a very good consensus. And that was me, Jason, Nikki, and Ellen. So I think it's a great list. And I would almost move that we adopt it.
I want to go through
Let's go
each
through it.
one
Let's go
and
through
then,
it.
yeah.
I was gonna ask, as a subcommittee, did you guys have a position on whether we should have all 10 of these? Like, was this an endorsement of all 10, or it says in no particular order? So I guess that obviates my next question. Was there a particular order?
There's no particular order. And I think we tried to narrow it down to 10.
Okay.
We wanted to present, our informal goal was kind of to bring 10 to the commission.
Okay.
I think last year we submitted 10. It's really up to the commission. If there are ones that you don't think should be on here, again, the county board is unlikely to adopt all 10. Historically, we've adopted one, maybe two. But yeah, it's really up for us to decide. And I will say, for anyone following along the Arl Now saga about the rent transparency or rent increase transparency, which was a proposal that I brought up at our first subcommittee meeting. It didn't have the support of the full subcommittee to move forward, so it's not one of them. I just think it's funny that it's been the focus of a series of articles in Arl Now. But yeah, 2 articles on it. Just they pick random things and they write about them. But yeah, so oh yeah.
I feel like we tried to strike a balance between priorities for home ownership, sort of, trying to make sure folks had assistance now and thinking about long-term housing needs for our community. So that's something we try to focus on too.
Especially since it's an election year for the legislature.
Yeah.
Home ownership and supply is
Big.
I think a big difference this year too was that the General Assembly this past session actually passed a lot of the things that we'd included in prior years that Governor Youngkin had vetoed previously. So prior years, the list looked a little bit more similar. This year is a little bit, we added some new things and I think thought a little bit more outside the box. Like we have some taxing, things in the year before that we'd previously never considered. Because we finally got some housing legislation passed and signed by the governor, which basically hadn't happened for 4 years. So this was a different process because of that. Okay, so looking at the first one, reenact and complete basically the Arlington specific authority over the affordable housing ordinance. So this is what our working group led by Brian last year was working on, and it was to have the General Assembly allow the Arlington County Board the opportunity to amend the affordable housing ordinance as the community thinks it should be amended. So whether that's to add, increase the number of years that the properties have to remain affordable, or change the contribution, like percentage for base level contributions for the affordable housing, program. It would allow the board to change this. So this was killed by the development community last year in the General Assembly. And I would like to believe that the county board is going to try again this year. So Barbara Favola and Delegate Lopez had sponsored legislation in the House and Senate to do this. The House version was very quickly killed by, I think, the Arlington Chamber of Commerce and AOBA. Then Senator Favola and the county board worked with the development community to make changes to Barbara's bill in the Senate to guarantee that the development community would have a seat at the table in any discussions around what the future changes should be. So they kind of bought their way into a codified role in the process, which, again, I've expressed multiple times my irritation with that because it's using money to buy what no one else gets in our community. So I would imagine the bill that moves forward this year is likely going to be a version of Senator Favola's bill that caved into a lot of the demands from the development community. But I don't know that, for sure. And I have not talked to the board about whether or not they plan to bring this forward again this year, but I would imagine they would. But that is the first item on the list. Any questions or comments on this one? Okay, Second one, this is new. So creating a state program to strengthen local fair housing enforcement. So in previous years, we've talked about stepping up funding for Virginia's Fair Housing Office and their enforcement. So this one is different. So this would be providing like technical assistance and training support similar to the federal Fair Housing Assistance Program that Arlington, the board has committed us to figuring out whether or not we should be a part of it, but no action's been taken on the part of the county to actually do that, which is very frustrating because it's been 3 years. And this would set up sort of a similar state program to ensure that like our Office of Human Rights that has a lot of challenges related to enforcing fair housing, our current fair housing protections under the Human Rights Ordinance, that they would get training and technical assistance to do a better job. And not just Arlington, but all communities that have human rights ordinances throughout the state, which is not all counties or cities, but many of them do. So we thought this would be helpful, given for unknown reasons, the hesitation on the part of the county to try and access federal resources, that, providing state resources to help them do a better job. Questions, comments on this one? Okay, the next one, legal aid contact information on all tenancy termination notices. So this is one that we'd included at least last year. I don't know if we did the year before as well. So when basically for an eviction notice, it would say, here's the legal aid, hotline or contact information if you would like to challenge your eviction. So that tenants know when they're getting the eviction notice that they have resources to help them, fight it if they think it's unjust, or, illegal, what have you. Because right now they do not receive any automatic notification that they have any rights to fight the eviction. So this is one that we included last year as well. Any questions on this one? Comments? Okay. The next one is also one that we included last year. So this is the statewide rental assistance pilot, which is being called 5,000 families. So DHCD had created a Virginia Housing Stability Fund proposal in 2023. The General Assembly did not take any action on it. This would be a statewide voucher program. As we've just been talking about today, there's a great need that Arlington County in and of itself cannot solve for, rental vouchers. So it'd be great if the state stepped up and actually provided funding and established this program. This has continued to not pass in the General Assembly since it was first introduced. But we think it's important on the subcommittee. The next item is the Virginia Mold Remediation Fund with landlord reimbursement. This is one that we've considered for a number of years. And I think we actually did include maybe 2 years ago as part of our recommendations. So we've heard a lot of complaints from people about dangerous mold in their units, and their landlords basically telling them, not my problem, figure it out yourself, which is technically illegal. So this would establish a free mold testing program that the state runs. So folks could reach out to the state and say, hey, I think I have dangerous mold. State would test for it. And if they do find dangerous mold in the apartment unit, they would let the landlords know that, hey, you're required to remediate the mold. And if you don't, the state will remediate the mold and then bill you for it. Because the issue that we're seeing is that tenants will go to their landlord and say, I have dangerous mold, you need to fix it. And the landlord just won't fix it. And they're having to live in unsafe conditions. So this would provide an opportunity for the state to step in and make sure that at the end of the day, what matters most is the tenant's health and safety. And it would make sure that gets done. And then the cost would just fall on the landlord to have to, basically, they would just owe the state. And the state could take whatever actions they need to collect that. Questions, comments on this one? Okay, the next one, condo maintenance fund. So this is based off of a program that Florida actually created. So in Arlington, especially, I know when I was looking at condos like Pentagon City, Crystal City, you have these high-rise condo buildings that are aging, and they have really, really high condo fees. They have really high and growing maintenance needs that are difficult for them to pay for. And the fear is that eventually these units are going to become unsellable because the condo fees will be so high that no one will want to live there. It just won't be worth it. And the folks who do currently own will be stuck with the unit, and they won't be able to sell if they want to leave. So Florida, I think, having a similar issue, had created the My Safe Florida condominium pilot in 2024. So this is a matching program for like roof related projects and like windows and doors and other sort of like maintenance needs throughout condominiums. And it aims to address some of these like really expensive and growing costs for older condominiums. And create like a Virginia program similar to the Florida one to address the needs of condo associations so that they don't have to have these like hugely escalating condo fees.
Can I ask you a question on this one? Is the purpose of this to incentivize more turnover in condos because condos tend to be more affordable than single family homes? Because I'm thinking, there are plenty of old single family homes that have I have one that is incredibly in 1940, incredibly high maintenance costs. With I guess why are we doing this for condos versus old single family homes or whatever other?
Low income complexes.
I see.
I think, was this one specific to low income?
Yeah, last time.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if we decided as a subcommittee priority if we would put that specifically in the recommendation, but I know that I said that if we move forward with this one, we should make it a specific thing for the low income.
If we say low income, I don't think we actually mean low income. I think we mean like moderate income.
Yeah.
Because low income people don't own condos for the most part.
Right.
Yeah.
But there could be, I guess, a value threshold. And we looked at Hawaii has a loan program that's kind of addressing a similar issue, and then Florida has this like grant program. And so I think we ended up going with the Florida one. I know Joe and I are going to have a meeting next week to like learn more about this and discuss it with some contacts.
I mean, it's a home ownership thing.
Yeah, I was just curious. I'm not opposed to the concept of just a question that arose when I read it.
Yeah, I think it's meant to, like, condos in Arlington are basically your starter homes for a lot of folks. And we don't want to get rid of our starter home inventory in places like Pentagon City and Crystal City.
Right.
Case in point, I live in a condo that's 19 years old in Roslyn. We just had a meeting last night for a special assessment. But people can afford it there, but elsewhere,
And I think your specific question is like, as homeowners, we don't have condo fees, but when condo fees just keep going up as the building ages. So it's like, not like you have property taxes, you have.
Any other questions about this one? And again, we're not necessarily deciding just because people have no questions that, okay, we're adopting this, but we're just going through them.
Sure, yeah.
The next one, increased funding for the Virginia Housing Trust Fund. So this has been part of our legislative priority recommendations for, I think, 3 of the last 4 years, if not longer. And the county board, I think, has also adopted this like every year as well. So I think it would make sense for us to continue asking for more money for affordable housing at the state level. Number 8 is new. So this is second home vacancy tax. We looked at kind of what New York City was doing. This is, I think, a little bit different. So this would be a state level tax on residential properties classified as non-primary but and unoccupied second homes. And the goal is that, you know, sell, rent, or use it, but don't just have a property that's sitting around in Arlington for most of the year, not being occupied, because we need that for people to live in. I don't know how big of a problem this is in Arlington versus other parts of the state. We did talk about a carve out for like beach, you know, resort areas of the state, like, you know, Virginia Beach. There's no way they would ever want something like this to pass without like a carve out.
Right.
But this is something that it's aiming to encourage people not to have vacant properties in the county, homes when that could be used for someone to live. And if they are going to do that, then we should be collecting money for affordable housing programs from that.
How do they implement that? Who do they know? That's a home.
So, I mean, you have to declare, like, I think for property, does the property tax rate? No, it doesn't change. But when you get a mortgage, you're saying whether it's a primary residence or a secondary residence. And
I would only know if the person is not using.
oh, they would declare. So they would have to say whether or not, like, you know, I'm using this home however many days a year that would like qualify. I mean, they could lie, but it would be fraud if they lied, and then they could get in much bigger trouble. If that were- so, yeah, I think that is how that's been done other places that have like implemented something similar, where it's like an attestation that like, yes, this is the second home or third home that I have, and I do not live in it. Like, I know we talked about there are a couple different places that have done this. And I can't think of what they were offhand, but I know we talked about that in the last meeting. But we were looking at like revenue generation, but also in a way that's going to incentivize less vacant homes.
Help our supply problem.
Yeah. Other questions about this one? There are potential constitutional issues at play with this, depending on how the tax was like done. But again, we can make the recommendation, like look into something like this. It is up to the board and the legislature to just figure out, yes, specifically like how to make it pass constitutional muster or, you know, what have you, right? The next one is also tax related. And this is a split value tax for the county manager form of government, which is Arlington's form of government. We're the only one that has it in the Commonwealth. So this is something that like Falls Church just got, and it allows localities to levy property taxes at a higher rate, it's assessing land at a higher rate than the buildings and improvements on it. So this is something that the legislature has extended to like Charlottesville, Falls Church, Fredericksburg, Newport News, Fairfax City, Roanoke, like multiple cities. But Arlington doesn't have the authority to do it unless the legislature specifically allows us to. And it's shifts the tax burden in theory towards underutilized land and incentivizes denser development and housing construction. Because you're going to get taxed more if it's land that doesn't have improvements on it. So like a tax on parking lots.
Oh,
Like- Yeah. Questions on this one? Last one, the zoning definition of family.
Danny is trying to say something.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Danny.
I'm trying a different microphone. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Did y'all talk about on this tax one, the potential impact to affordable developments? I'm just thinking through that, specifically because, they're not treated differently in the county, right? So like once a project is entitled, they pay the same tax rate based on, the scope, the scale of development, regardless of the fact that, it's potentially affordable. Just might want to kind of put some kind of caveat or carve out on that tax piece.
You talk more about that. So under the scenario, you think that affordable housing would potentially like have a higher tax burden because of this?
Well, I think what you're getting to is that you're trying to like expedite development, right? You're trying to say like, don't get a piece of land entitled and then just camp it out, right?
Yeah, I think
That's
like
sort of the,
you have that like lot by Whole Foods, right? That like hasn't been used for I don't know how many years, which is like insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's apparently economical for them to just not redevelop that land and have it be like an empty lot. And I think this is trying to disincentivize that and say, no, you're going to be taxed more if you have like an empty lot versus.
It's being used. It's like a used car dealer or something. It's being used.
It's been, I think now it my time in Arlington, like I remember when it wasn't, there was like nothing there. And yeah, I think there's like cars parked there now, but like that's also kind of insane for Clarendon and like right there in the main strip.
It really looks bizarre.
It is, yeah, very bizarre.
But sorry, go ahead, Danny.
well, I mean, just thinking through that same logic, right? Like say, affordable developer buys, said vacant lot or whatever, and they're paying this additional tax on land without any consideration. Like under the current county tax code, essentially, like once a property is entitled, they pay the taxes on that entitlement. So regardless of if it's an affordable project or if it's a market rate project, like they're basically paying the equivalent taxes based on that density that they've earned, right? So like Lucky Gardens, for example, just was entitled, right? So now the tax assessment is based on that density instead of the fact that it's an affordable housing project.
Those units won't be delivered for a number of years. It'll be taxed at a value where it says that the units are there.
But wouldn't that mean potentially a lower rate? Because this is trying to incentivize development. So if it's entitled for like a higher development, you're not going to have a higher tax rate because of that. You would have a like. Am I misunderstanding?
I think it would be a
possible.
lower tax for development.
You wouldn't necessarily, because you're taxing the land at a higher rate, right? So the basically you're flipping the value. You're saying that the land has a higher value and so it should be taxed accordingly, right?
I think until, and I don't know if it's like entitlement or when it's actually built, and where that change is made. Also, it's unfortunate we don't have Jason here because this was like his his thing. And I understand it to a degree, but I think he understood it a lot more. But if there's a provision, Danny, you want us to add, I'm happy adding something.
Yeah, I mean, I that my guidance would just be a carve out for affordable housing development. I don't really have specific language in mind. But
We can see if.
We can check with Jason too.
Yeah, if the other counties had.
Okay. Thank you for raising that concern.
Also, it's just the authority, right? Like,
Yeah, it would just give the county the authority to do it. It doesn't mean that they would actually implement it.
So in terms of a carve out, would the carve out even need to be at the state level?
Yes. Yeah, the state, I think, would have to give the parameters under which like Arlington could do it, but who's AN? Okay. Why is it AN and not? Okay.
It's Alice Hogan.
Yep, go ahead, Alice.
I just wanted to, I was on the comment list for this, so I don't know when that would happen, but I did just want to respond to Danny that I've been speaking with some developer owners, and I'm not a tax person, but I was actually hearing folks saying, like, did we want to do the reverse of this when it comes to affordable housing? And maybe Danny, you could help me understand. I believe they were saying that the time between entitlement and the completion of the construction, they're paying the same tax rate as if it were a built building that's producing, not in this case profit necessarily, but you know, enough to sustain itself. And one of the ideas about to try to make affordable development more affordable for the developer would be to lower that tax rate. When there's no usage, there's nothing to be gained on that property in those, what, 3 years or something. Does that sound correct to you?
Yeah, so yes, that is correct. So I mean, maybe not exactly, but like I brought up the example of Lucky Gardens, like once a property is entitled, really the county until it's built and completed doesn't really view it differently, market rate or affordable. It's based on the density, and they do a calculation based on the unit, right? So the approved units is what drives the tax payments. So, and that's until it gets built, completed, turned over, stabilized, and then it gets reassessed based on the property's income. And that's what helps, you know, an affordable property to not have to pay such a huge property tax bill, because their property tax bill is based off of the income generated for the property. So that's my general understanding. But so like it disadvantages affordable housing developer in the county because they're paying a huge tax bill until they deliver those units. I mean, the flip side is that, yes, it does encourage affordable housing to be developed more quickly, but that's not always possible because of financial constraints to any given project.
It still seems like this wouldn't make that any worse than it currently is. Like, if anything, this would lessen, or it wouldn't change that current situation. But if the affordable developer was sitting on a property before entitlement, yes, they could face a higher tax burden. But it sounds like it wouldn't change what happens after entitlement. I don't think so. But we can look into that and make sure before we, you know, submit, we have, you know, done a bit more due diligence on that one.
Cool, thanks.
Okay. And then the last one, zoning definition of family / golden goals reform. We've already asked the county board to make this change. And the board has already said they want to make the change in 2023. I don't understand why it hasn't happened yet. So now we're going to ask the county board to ask the state to make them make the change.
With a different label.
Yes. So we'll see how that goes over if we approve it. But this is something that I think the Housing Commission has already said we want. I just don't understand why it's taking the county forever to do it. And especially the whole board has said that they want it. So I continue to be confused at the slow pace of some things in our community. But yeah, so this would eliminate the restrictions on unrelated individuals living in a their household, which is already part of Arlington's approved fair housing plan. It just hasn't been implemented, and this would mandate that localities do it across the state.
Tax on future units density.
Any comments or questions on this one? Okay, now let's move into public comment. Alice?
You're so fast. Okay, let's see. Now where are my comments? Okay. I wondered about the priorities. First off, it's, 10 of them. I'm wondering if before you vote this evening, if you'll have them in some sort of list of priorities so the county board can see what is most important to the commission. And then just to let you all know that Navaja has been looking at these and others, and we, looking at them in order of expected impact on supply and on household stability. So our priorities would be the AHO, which, for Arlington specifically, and then more broadly for the state would be the 5,000 families, the Housing Trust Fund, SRO or micro units. So that would be a zoning change. And then support for older condos as affordable home ownership. You all have talked about definition of family and then fair housing. So those are our priorities. And I just wanted to thank the subcommittee for the hard work you all have been doing. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you land on your own priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Okay, so now opening it up for commission discussion. Does anyone feel like there are things missing from this list that we should be considering? Okay, hearing none. Is there anything on this list that people do not feel like we should be recommending the county board?
I mean, the devil's in the details on some of these, but with that acknowledged, I really appreciate all the work you guys did and think it's a great list.
Go ahead.
I move that we recommend the list subject to further due diligence on number 9, the split value tax, checking the affordable housing.
Okay, do we want to try and rank them? I will say in the survey, there's no way to rank them. So I don't know that the county board, I don't know how much they're gonna pay attention to the letter versus.
So these have to be inputted individually into the.
Each one, and there's like fields you have to fill out for each one, and yeah.
I would say considering the county board, we know that they want golden girls and.
Well, I actually think they're likely to oppose that one.
Oh, I thought you said they wanted.
They want to do it themselves. They're likely to oppose the state telling them.
Having the state do it. Wow.
Well, considering that they only take one a year, I don't know.
I mean, last year they took 2, maybe.
It's 940.
Yeah. I mean, so if there's no further discussion, or is there any further discussion on the motion that Joe made? Which is to adopt the list with no prioritization, and with the caveat that for the split value tax one, we're going to do some more research. And for all of these too, like this is not the final wording,
right?
When we did the letter, you could prioritize based on the flow between what we know the county board and what Alice had and stuff like that. I think it flows. I think it's a good list.
We have to give, I think we have to like give discretion because basically, which I'm fine with.
Well, by the end of the month, if we have to submit, like, I mean, next week I should be able to send out like a draft for people to take a look at, find, comments, but yeah, I think we have enough time. Okay, so do I have a second to Joe's motion? Thank you. Let's do a roll call vote. I vote yes. Commissioner Coleman?
Aye.
Commissioner Blake? Commissioner Ventrone?
Yes.
Commissioner Liddick?
Yes.
Commissioner Montgomery?
Yes.
Commissioner Ross?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. I believe that is the last of our action items. Thank you. Also, I will prepare a draft letter, and we can finalize the exact wording, and then I can input it in their student survey. Okay. So next is development updates.
Okay, so I will try to be quick here. I have a little bit of reading to do. We have 2 development updates. First is a conversion of residential uses, short-term stays. So Ditmar is requesting permission to permanently convert up to 25 units from residential to flexible residential/hotel use to permit short-term stays of less than 30 days at Randolph Towers and Cortland Towers. In 2021, Ditmar received county board approval to operate these flexible units for a period of 5 years and has been operating them at Cortland Towers since 2023. Ditmar will continue to prioritize long-term stays in these existing furnished units and the option to permit occasional short-term stays in less than 5% of the total building units during the typical vacancy periods between long-term leases. Ditmar will also continue to comply with the short-term stay requirements, which include a 3-night minimum, and that each flexible unit may be used for short-term stays no more than 90 nights per year. The flexible residential/hotel use is not in conflict with each site's sector plan guidance and Glup zoning designations. Since the flexible units may be rented by any individual seeking either a long-term lease or short-term stay, staff expects the conversions to have limited impact on the broader housing supply or rental rates. Also, the nature of these conversations is distinctly different from other typical hotel conversations where residential units were temporarily converted to hotel use exclusively for short-term stays with nightly room rentals like traditional hotels during their 2-year initial lease-up period for new residential construction. So that is the first one. It's a request to convert 25 units from residential to flexible residential/hotel.
And that's just an update and there's nothing.
If you have, I mean, I'm happy to provide any feedback or questions to the planner that is working on it if you all have any.
I just have a healthy skepticism. I mean, we saw during COVID, as rental like prices were going down, they were like, oh, let's just convert them to hotels so we don't actually have to lower the rents. Or like, you know, short-term stays. And I think this is a way to game the market. I don't know if that's true in this case. But that is one of my concerns because I think we saw it during COVID when you start to see the, you know, rent prices come down, that the people who own those buildings say, how can we use these buildings for other things that will make us just as much money as we were making before? Because that's what they care about and they don't want prices to go down. So just healthy skepticism of any request to make sure that it's not actually, you know, in response to like, oh, rent's going down. So instead of, you know, offering a lower rent, we're just going to convert it to a different use.
I will absolutely pass that comment along.
Then put it back on the market when the rents go up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which undercuts the whole increased supply and then prices will come down.
Any other questions, comments on that one before I moved into a very quick Barcroft update? None. Barcroft Apartments 5th rehab phase amended financing commitment letters. So you'll see that this is on the county board agenda for this month. The July agenda includes a Barcroft item for approval of an amended financing commitment letter for the 5th rehab phase of Barcroft Apartments to reflect an increased AHIF request of about $636,000, which is funded from the original $150 million acquisition fund loan. No net new AHIF, it came out of that 150 million. There are no changes to any other county financing terms from previously approved financing commitment letter. The commitment letter and associated amendment is a requirement of Virginia Housing, and the county board previously approved a financing commitment letter for this phase of the rehab in March. So will have to be reapproved this month. If approved, finance, closing, and construction is anticipated to begin this fall. So that is a very brief update on the 5th renovation phase for Barcroft. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, and other than that, I just have one meeting that I believe we need coverage for. the Kensington Elder Care SPRC July 27th. So we don't have anyone for that. If you're interested in that, let me know. I'm happy to add you and work with the planner to get you on that SPRC meeting invite. But that is it for me today.
Yeah, I may be able to do that. I gotta check with my calendar.
Okay.
Sounds good. Any questions, comments on development updates from anyone?
Do you need coverage at the board for July 18th for the 1401 Wilson?
So let me see.
Who's on tap for that?
Or anyone's schedule?
You are the prep.
I'm the one, okay.
So yes, we will be there.
Okay.
Subcommittee liaison reports, IFAS. So we have sort of another preliminary meeting.
Yeah, we have the initial meeting this upcoming Wednesday, which will just be Ellen and Brian and a few affordable housing developers, and then we'll get into the public facing process after that. So
That one's closed.
yeah, it is a smaller meeting to meet with the developers and get their kind of initial insights, and then we'll be opened up to the full community either later this month or you know.
But is the subcommittee formed?
This has been a really weird process because it's heavily staff driven and less, like Brian is the chair, but like everything has been sort of determined by staff thus far. So I don't remember if we had every like people volunteer who wanted to serve on it, or if we got that far back in like February when we approved this.
I'm not sure if we did, but I can circle back up internally and I will reach out to the commission to.
Yeah. And we
Whether
definitely
it's
will
next
need
step.
people to serve on it, and we can figure out what those dates will be. But yeah, thus far, it's been mostly county staff just doing work in the background. Brian and I occasionally meeting to get an update. But the work for us as commissioners won't really begin until after this next meeting.
Okay.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, just to kind of summarize some of that, Joe, to your point, this has been not really at all like the work we did with the affordable housing ordinance. So I think it'd be appreciated to have the commissioner's input once we're at that stage. But at this point, as Kellen said, we're just kind of working off of what staff is providing us. And I think once we get more feedback from particularly developers, and we kind of develop a plan moving forward with that information, we can start kind of recruiting people to work as a larger group.
And then I think the only other subcommittee update is the TLC subcommittee on the human rights ordinance and housing. So we met last night with the Office of Human Rights, and I will probably, I don't know if it'll be September or October, bring another letter to the commission. Zero progress has been made on any of the recommendations we have made about changing the ordinance to enhance the authority to be consistent with the Virginia Fair Housing Law and the Federal Fair Housing Law. Zero progress has been made on the Office of Human Rights implementing any of the the goals assigned to them as part of the Fair Housing Plan. The answers that I heard last night from the same questions I've been asking for multiple years were exactly the same answers I've been getting for multiple years, with no progress. So I think it's time for us to do our annual letter to the county board to encourage them to also make progress on this. I mean, I think the only thing we've seen on fair housing is they finally are doing testing again, which they've gone on hiatus for 10 years. Which is a very important step. And they provided slightly more money for fair housing in the last two budgets. I think $30,000 or $60,000 maybe total. So that's progress. But like the other things that we've asked for, especially the things that don't cost them money, no progress has been made. Yeah, I plan to bring that as an action item forward, depending on how many other things are on the agenda in September, it may be October. But I continue to be frustrated. And that subcommittee is going to be making recommendations as well on the human rights ordinance and how it should be changed. Hopefully not to the same result. That they will just be. Any questions on any of those items? Okay, last item on our agenda is the approval of the notes. Is there a motion to approve the notes?
Move to approve the notes.
A second?
Second.
Any objection? Notes are approved. Thank you. And without further ado, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no.